For millions of people, Yu-Gi-Oh! Begins with an old man collapsing beside a torn Blue Eyes white dragon. Seto Kaiba stands above him, Yugi takes his grandfather's deck, and Exodia appears before the first episode is over. The series makes its promise immediately. These cards matter. These monsters will decide everything. The manga begins with a smaller promise and a much sharper knife. Yugi Muto is a lonely student carrying an Egyptian puzzle to school. Joey Wheeler steals one of its pieces and throws it into the water. A hall monitor named Ushio offers Yugi protection, beats Joey and Tristan, and demands payment for the service. Yugi completes the Millennium Puzzle. Another personality takes control of his body, and Ushio is invited to play a game involving money and a knife. He loses his mind to a penalty game based on his own greed. No blue eyes, no holograms, no tournament. The future king of games enters the story as a supernatural judge who can turn a school bully's favorite weakness into psychological torture. That early Domino City period feels like it wandered in from another manga. Its structure resembles a horror anthology. Its hero is dangerous. Its games change every week. Many opponents vanish forever after one chapter, usually screaming. Even Kaiba, the franchise's most durable rival, begins as the kind of villain who could have been killed or institutionalized at the end of his second story. This is the strange opening Yu-Gi-Oh! Eventually left behind. It never fully fits the card game adventure the series becomes. It still creates almost everything that later adventure needs. And before we get into that transformation, subscribe if you enjoy these deeper looks at the forgotten parts of Yu-Gi-Oh! And the choices that change the entire series. It helps to define the storyline before judging it. Domino City Arc is a useful fan description for the early material, rather than one official tournament-style arc with a single villain. The first 7 manga volumes contain the opening Shadow Game stories, Kaiba's Death Tea Revenge, Shadi's Judgment, and Bakura's Monster World game. They share a setting, a cast, and a stage in Yugi's development. They do not share one continuous mission. Calling the whole period an arc already reveals the problem. We are trying to place a border around several smaller forms the manga used before Duelist Kingdom gave Yu-Gi-Oh! The structure it would follow for years. That distinction also keeps the comparison fair. Early Domino City was never designed as a failed version of Battle City. Takahashi was building a different weekly experience at the time. Each chapter could introduce a new corner of the city, a new kind of danger, and a new game with its own visual trick. The reader returned to see what object might become an arena. A pack of cards, a restaurant table, a toy machine, or a television set could suddenly acquire rules and consequences. The unpredictability was part of the appeal. The cleanest way to understand early Domino City is to forget the franchise built afterward. Kazuki Takahashi did not begin with a fully designed trading card universe waiting to be revealed. He began with games in general. His idea was that a physically weak boy could become a hero through intelligence, nerve, and an ability to understand how people behave under pressure. That premise explains the title better than the later anime sometimes does. Yugi is the king of games, plural. A card duel is one possible battlefield. The early manga sends him through tabletop games, gambling tricks, toys, puzzles, virtual attractions, and contests invented for a single confrontation. The object changes. The basic mechanism stays in place. Somebody cruel believes he has found a game he can control. Dark Yugi accepts the challenge, identifies the flaw in that person, and allows the game to expose it. The opponent usually defeats himself. Ushio reaches for more money and loses control. A violence-escaped prisoner plays a deadly game with a lighter while covered in alcohol. A television producer who stages cruelty for ratings becomes trapped inside the kind of spectacle he creates. A crooked businessman, a sadistic teacher, or a collector may enter with a different gimmick, though their purpose is similar. Each one treats people as objects. Dark Yugi gives them a set of rules, watches them cheat, and delivers a punishment shaped around the vice that made cheating inevitable. This makes the games feel like moral X-rays. Skill matters. Character matters more. Dark Yugi wins because he understands the person across from him. The later series preserves this idea in a friendlier form. Pegasus builds a deck around mockery and control. Merrick turns pain into a philosophy. Kaiba fills his field with overwhelming force. Yugi answers all of them by reading the duel and the duelist together. Early Domino City expresses that idea with the cruelty of an urban ghost story. The city feels unsafe in an ordinary way before the magic arrives. School staff can abuse their authority. Teenagers are targeted by criminals. Wealth protects people who enjoy hurting others. Adults frequently fail to notice what is happening, leaving Yugi and his friends inside a private world of threats. The Millennium Puzzle does not introduce evil into their lives. It gives evil a referee. That is where the first major problem appears. Dark Yugi's justice is often more frightening than the original offense. His penalty games can destroy minds, create lethal illusions, and leave people psychologically broken. He enjoys the reveal. His smile tells us he already knows how the opponent will fail. The familiar pharaoh carries pride, anger, and a willingness to risk too much. This early figure has the composure of a curse. The distinction changes Yugi's place in his own story. Regular Yugi frequently has no memory of the punishment delivered through his body. He experiences relief without understanding its source. A problem appears, darkness takes over, and Yugi wakes after judgment has been passed. The arrangement works for short horror stories because mystery is part of the attraction. Over a long adventure, it would leave the main character standing outside his own victories. Takahashi gradually solves that problem by turning the two Yugis toward each other. Their relationship becomes the emotional spine of the entire series. The frightening stranger inside the puzzle becomes a protector, partner, and eventually a person whose name Yugi wants to recover. Regular Yugi gains confidence and takes greater responsibility for their choices. The ceremonial duel works because the boy who once needed an unconscious Avenger can finally face that Avenger directly and win. Early Domino City gives this growth somewhere to begin. The distance between them is enormous. That makes the eventual closeness meaningful. The same is true of Joey. His introduction contains the whole series in miniature. He humiliates Yugi, steals the final puzzle piece, and throws it away. Yugi still calls him a friend when Ushio attacks him. Joey is shaken by receiving loyalty he has not earned. He retrieves the piece and returns it, helping Yugi complete the object that will change all of their lives. Friendship in Yu-Gi-Oh! Begins as an act of faith towards somebody behaving badly. Yugi sees a better Joey before Joey has proved that version of himself exists. Joey spends the rest of the manga proving Yugi right. Every reckless duel, every attempt to help Serenity, and every refusal to abandon Yugi grows from that first experience of being treated as more than a bully. T and Tristan help create that first circle, even when the later card-focused story struggles to give them equal power. T knows Yugi before the puzzle transforms his social life. She can recognize changes in him that new rivals miss, and her concern makes Dark Yugi's arrival feel like a human mystery instead of a convenient upgrade. Tristan begins near Joey's worst behavior, and gradually becomes one of the people willing to walk into danger for the group. Early games allow both of them to participate through courage, observation, and physical action. A tournament built around decks naturally moves authority toward the duelists. The more Yu-Gi-Oh! Depends on cards, the more often its friendships are celebrated by characters who have to watch from outside the arena. This is a quiet loss during the transformation. The early ensemble can touch the machinery of a game, argue over a decision, and rescue one another between turns. Duel Monsters creates stronger long-form strategy and clearer rivalries. It also concentrates destiny in the hands of the people carrying competitive decks. T remains emotionally important and Tristan remains loyal, though neither receives a language as powerful as the one given to Yugi, Joey, and Kaiba. The original variety made room for an ordinary friend to become useful without first becoming an elite player. This material fits the heart of Yu-Gi-Oh! Perfectly. It clashes with the shape the franchise later adopts. The episodic structure creates part of that clash. A weekly game built for one villain can be clever, though it rarely creates a shared language between stories. The reader learns the rules moments before the contest begins. Dark Yugi discovers an unexpected interpretation. The game disappears with the defeated opponent. Strategy becomes difficult to compare because every chapter resets the possibilities. Duel Monsters changes everything by staying. Kaiba's first appearance feels like a signal arriving from the future. He sees Yugi's cards, discovers that Grandpa owns a Blue Eyes White Dragon, and uses deception to take it. Dark Yugi challenges him through Magic and Wizards, the manga's original name for Duel Monsters, and Kaiba loses. The game is still one attraction among many. Its monsters and visual possibilities immediately give the story something the disposable games lack: a world that can grow. Readers can remember a Blue Eyes. They can argue over a deck. A defeated card can return under a different owner and carry history with it. The rules can develop across multiple matches. Characters can reveal themselves through recurring choices. Most importantly, children can play a version of the same game with one another. Takahashi later explained that he had planned to use the card game briefly. Reader response convinced him to bring it back and concentrate on it. That decision saved a manga that had struggled to find secure popularity. It also placed an expiration date on the original anthology format. Once the series discovered a game capable of supporting characters, merchandise, strategy, mythology, and endless new monsters, returning to a deadly yo-yo contest would feel like leaving the main story. Kaiba's Revenge produces the largest bridge between the two versions of Yu-Gi-Oh! After his first defeat, he turns Kaiba Corporation's wealth and technology toward constructing Death Tea, an attraction designed to kill Yugi and his friends through a sequence of lethal games. This is early Yu-Gi-Oh! Operating at full volume. A teenage billionaire creates a murder theme park because he lost a card game. He employs criminals, professional killers, and elaborate technology. He terrorizes Yugi's grandfather and makes a spectacle of every stage. Death Tea is excessive even by Kaiba's standards, and that excess helps the manga discover its future. Earlier chapters isolate Dark Yugi with one villain. Death Tea gives the whole group a function. Joey's courage matters. Tristan's loyalty matters. Tea's presence matters. Yugi cannot pass every stage through possession and punishment. Friendship becomes a practical resource. The final confrontation also returns to duel monsters. Kaiba arrives with 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, obtained through methods that establish him as genuinely monstrous in the manga. Yugi assembles Exodia and defeats him. Dark Yugi gives Kaiba a mind crush intended to shatter the evil in his heart so he can rebuild himself. The later version of Kaiba grows from that reconstruction. He remains arrogant, obsessive, and cruel. He also becomes capable of protecting Mokuba, cooperating during a crisis, and respecting Yugi's ability, even while insulting nearly everybody within speaking distance. His development makes sense inside the manga. Viewers who begin with the 2000 anime meet a compressed version of these events. The anime combines important pieces of Kaiba's earlier encounters into a card duel that reaches Exodia almost immediately. Death Tea largely disappears, along with the full scale of the breakdown that originally preceded his return. This creates one of the oddest effects of early Domino City. It provides essential character history in a form later adaptations cannot comfortably acknowledge. The Kaiba remembered around the world is an extreme rival. Death Tea Kaiba is a horror villain using corporate resources to arrange child murder. Both share the same pride and need for control. The distance between them is still large enough to make the early material feel unofficial when placed beside the popular anime. Shadi provides a different kind of bridge. His arrival expands the Millennium Puzzle from a mysterious source of power into one piece of a larger supernatural system. He can enter the rooms of a person's soul and judge the contents. His encounters make Yugi's mind into a physical place, deepen the mystery of the items, and suggest that the spirit inside the puzzle belongs to an ancient story waiting to be uncovered. The series needs Shadi because card games alone cannot carry the ending Takahashi eventually wants. Yu-Gi-Oh! Will travel toward Egypt, buried memory, the origin of the Millennium items, and the identity of the pharaoh. Shadi plants that direction during a period when the manga still behaves like supernatural horror. He feels completely at home among dangerous judgments and damaged minds. Later, the mythology surrounding him becomes larger than the short stories that introduced it. Bakura's Monster World story completes the transition. Bakura arrives as a polite transfer student with a Millennium Ring and a history of games ending terribly for the people around him. Yugi, Joey, Tristan, and T join him for a tabletop role-playing game. Their souls become connected to miniature figures, while Dark Bakura controls the game as a hostile master. A social evening becomes a trap. The friends have to survive inside a shared fantasy while the two spirits fight through the rules. Monster World is one of the strongest stories in the early run because its chosen game can carry a real arc. A role-playing game already contains characters, travel, monsters, chance, cooperation, and a final enemy. The group enters as a party, so friendship affects every decision. Dark Bakura uses the game to isolate and possess. Yugi's side survives through trust and communication. That conflict also introduces a villain who can follow the heroes beyond one punishment. Bakura becomes the long threat hiding inside the group, just as the pharaoh once hid inside Yugi. The symmetry is excellent. Yugi's second self protects friendships and slowly learns humanity through them. Bakura's second self uses friendship as cover while pursuing an ancient grievance. The final Millennium World story grows from seeds planted around a tabletop. Early Domino City therefore ends close to the franchise's future. It begins with unrelated moral traps and develops toward continuing rivals, millennium mythology, team-based battles, and games large enough to hold a full adventure. The material changes while we are reading it. That makes it fascinating. It also makes it uneven. A later Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc usually announces a goal: win Duelist Kingdom and save Grandpa, reach the Battle City Finals and uncover the Pharaoh's past, defeat Darts and recover the stolen souls. Early Domino City has no comparable engine for much of its length. Yugi goes to school, encounters a cruel person, and waits for the darkness to respond. Some chapters are wonderfully inventive. Others feel like demonstrations for games that never had enough depth to return. The villains create a similar problem. Their greed and sadism make the penalty games satisfying, though many arrive already completed as human beings. They have one ugly quality, one gimmick, and one chapter before judgment. Pegasus, Merrick, and Bakura can evolve because they remain in the story. A corrupt teacher built to be punished before the final page has little room to surprise us. Dark Yugi's near-perfect control can also flatten suspense. The pleasure comes from watching the trap close. We rarely fear that he misunderstood the opponent. Once the formula becomes familiar, the chapter depends almost entirely on the novelty of the game and punishment. Duel Monsters eventually gives opponents time to answer him. A card played now can create a weakness several turns later. Joey can lose. Yugi can make a reckless decision. Kaiba can force a situation nobody fully controls. The stable game produces unstable drama. The 1998 Toei anime preserves much of the original atmosphere. It runs for 27 episodes, adapts material from the early manga, keeps the variety of games, and expands some minor characters. Fans later gave it the unofficial label Season 0, which makes it sound like a secret prequel to the famous series. Its production history tells a less tidy story. It is the first anime adaptation. The 2000 Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters series comes from a different studio and begins again with the card game placed at the center. That second show reached the international audience, supported the physical game, and defined the franchise's visual identity. Early incidents were compressed, converted into card duels, or left behind. Bakura's tabletop nightmare becomes a Duel Monsters confrontation. Kaiba's long path through Death Tea is reduced to the information required for his rivalry. The audience receives the destination with only fragments of the road. English publication adds another visible seam. Viz released the first 7 volumes under Yu-Gi-Oh!, while the material beginning with Duelist Kingdom continued under Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist. It remains one continuous manga, yet the labels describe the transformation with accidental honesty. The first title contains a series searching for its permanent game. The second knows exactly which game the world came to see. This is why the Domino City beginning never fits comfortably into popular memory. The successful version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Becomes so specific that its own origin starts to look like a prototype. A franchise built around deck identities, summoning rituals, and tournament brackets has trouble absorbing a chapter about a criminal balancing a lighter. A heroic pharaoh who gives speeches about faith in his cards sits awkwardly beside a smiling spirit who breaks a bully's mind. Kaiba, the rival, can threaten people and endanger a city. Death Tea pushes him toward a form of deliberate sadism the later story rarely wants to examine. There is also a commercial reason, and it deserves to be said plainly. Duel Monsters can exist outside the page. Readers can buy cards, build decks, and challenge friends. Each new monster can enter the story and the product at the same time. The early games often depend on a custom board, unusual props, or a supernatural rule invented for one scene. They generate stories. Duel Monsters generates a culture. That success did not erase Takahashi's original purpose. It gave the purpose a repeatable form. He described the attraction of games as the chance for a player to become the hero. He also valued the communication created by facing another person. Duel Monsters turns those ideas into the series' common language. Yugi becomes brave through play. Joey earns respect through play. Kaiba can express obsession, grief, and pride through the same system. Even a villain must sit across from another person, accept rules, and reveal something through every choice. The early manga is strongest whenever it understands games this way. Joey returning the puzzle piece matters more than Ushio's punishment. The friend surviving Death Tea matters more than Kaiba's expensive machinery. Monster World works because each person becomes a literal piece in a shared game and still keeps the ability to choose. The objects change. The human connection carries forward. Its horror also survives longer than people remember. Shadow games remain part of Duelist Kingdom and Battle City. Pegasus steals souls. Merrick turns a tournament into psychological torture. Bakura treats bodies as temporary containers. The memory world reveals that the Millennium items were born from mass death. Yu-Gi-Oh! Grows brighter, larger, and more marketable while keeping a buried chamber beneath the arena. Early Domino City built that chamber. Even Dark Yugi's punishments survive in softened language. The international anime's Shadow Realm becomes a famous way of avoiding death and injury, though it also preserves the idea that losing can remove a person from ordinary reality. A duel may look like a sport. Ancient power keeps turning it into judgment. So, did the early Domino City storyline fail to fit Yu-Gi-Oh? As a piece of the franchise, most people recognize yes. Its rhythm, tone, and rules belong to a different kind of series. It offers an anthology where viewers expect a saga. It uses games as temporary traps where viewers expect a permanent competitive system. Its pharaoh resembles a dangerous supernatural force more than the noble champion established by the later anime. The transition asks us to accept major changes in Kaiba, Yugi, and the entire function of the world. As the beginning of the manga's central ideas, it belongs completely. Friendship is already the answer to isolation. Games already reveal the person playing them. The Millennium items already connect ordinary teenage life to ancient violence. Kaiba, Bakura, and Shadi already point toward the three largest parts of the future story: rivalry, darkness, and memory. I think the arc's weakness comes from how visibly it searches for its final form. Readers can feel Takahashi testing how much story each game can hold. Some ideas last 20 pages. Death Tea lasts long enough to build momentum. Monster World proves that one game can carry a cast and a continuing villain. Duel Monsters offers all of that with an unlimited supply of new images and strategies. Once it returns for Duelist Kingdom, the search is over. That makes early Domino City less like a failed first season and more like Yu-Gi-Oh's laboratory. The experiments are messy. A few are cruel enough to seem absurd beside the later series. Several are more imaginative than the formula that replaced them. Every important discovery is already sitting on the table by the end. Yugi needs his friends. The other Yugi needs a human identity, Kaiba needs a rival, Bakura needs a long game, and the manga needs one shared system capable of bringing all of them together. The cards won. The strange little horror manga never vanished. It remained inside them.